Good morning and welcome to the first Agile conference. I'm Luis Seijo. I'm the host here at the Clínica Universidad Navarra. I'd like to have Claudia Henschke introduce the session and give a warm welcome to everybody, and we'll have a brief introductory session and then the conference will start. Thank you.
Good morning. Let's see. There we are. So welcome, everybody. I hope you had a good rest and a good evening in Madrid, and you'll enjoy the next days. So can you hear me in the back? Okay. So again, welcome to the first Agile conference, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that. And it's the 45th I-ELCAP conference and also the Oudkerk conference. Let's see. My disclosures. So we want to thank Dr. Infante for his wonderful hosting of the conference that we had in Verona. You see the old amphitheater, the Roman amphitheater there. And that was the 44th International Conference. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful conference. Everybody enjoyed it. And we've had 44 international conferences. We welcome those who have not been to our previous conferences. We've been all over the world, and we welcome everybody in the world. So why set up Agile? You'll hear more about it from Matthias Oudkerk. I know I don't say it correctly, but so please excuse me. But he approached us and said we should develop a collaboration that focuses on global screening implementation, particularly using imaging tests, because there's a lot to the imaging acquisition and really to the future AI. It makes a big difference how you acquire the images, what the protocols are. And then also there's not enough known about how you treat these small lung cancers, the alternatives that we're having and they're rapidly developing. And we should really develop repositories for the future, because that's how AI is going to progress. So the planning committee was really a very fun collaboration between all of these people. They met on a regular basis. They talked about almost on a weekly basis. So we thank all of the planning committee. Unfortunately, John Field couldn't be here, but everybody else is here. And thank you for all of the work that you did, because I saw it on a daily basis. So the mission is, and Matthias will say more about that, but it's the international focus on effective and economical implementation of screening. It's going to be a little different in every country. Every country has its own resources and requirements. So we really need to maximize the capabilities in each country and see how we can make it more efficient. So, Matthias, you want me to click?
Yeah, thanks, Claudia. Yeah, there was an immediate, I think, response from Mount Sinai, which was extremely positive. That confirmed the whole idea that we should start this. There is a kind of explosion, and next, please. There's a kind of explosion at the moment of all kinds of initiatives worldwide to start lung cancer screening. You see it in Europe. Probably in the US, there has been already many, many more initiatives as in Europe, but also in China, in Japan. And all those initiatives are, well meant, of course, but are not really tuned up to the fashion and experience that there is in the field already, because there has been many initiatives over the last 20 years, and we should not lose this experience. That's our view. Now, first, why now? I think the evidence is there. And that's, I think, very important. It started with the first paper of Claudia in 1999 in the Lancet. And then we had several ones of the NLST and the Nelson from us. And it ended up in 2020. So it took quite a long time before everyone in the field was concerned, and especially also those are who extremely skeptical to the implementation of lung cancer screening and why it should be started and reimbursed, of course. Now, from this, I think those are the key papers. If you read those, then you should be convinced that it should be implemented. Yeah, next. Now, important to realize is that the US Preventive Task Force decided in 2021 that indeed the evidence after the publication of the Nelson changed from moderate to high. And with this, also Medicare decided to implement and reimburse lung cancer screening in the US. So the Nelson study the outcome of the Nelson study proved that indeed lung cancer screening could be very profitable for anyone involved in terms of mortality reduction. Yeah, please. Now, the Cochrane group, as you probably know, are the pronounced high priest of statistics and epidemiology. So when they come in, then you are taken seriously. So we were very happy that the Cochrane group started this analysis, and they came to the following conclusion, and that they wrapped up all evidence in the field. So therefore, it's from our view very important that you also get the analysis of the Cochrane group in place. And I will read it, their final conclusion. Current evidence from 11 lung cancer screening trials supports a reduction in lung cancer screening related mortality with the use of lung cancer low dose CT for lung cancer screening in high risk populations, those over the age of 40 with a significant smoking exposure. However, there are limited data on harms and further trials are required to determine participant selection. So the recruitment and how you select is very important. The optimal frequency, and I think that is also we will take in consideration, and duration of screening. With potential, the significant overdiagnosis of lung cancer, which is also, I think, a major issue. And trials are going on for lung cancer screening and on smokers. So that is their final conclusion. I think, so they really got supportive for implementation, but there are still things that has to be solved. And I think this conference that we are starting now, also for the coming years, will host all those things to get the answers that are still there for those that are very important also in political circles. Okay, next. So the motivation for Agile. So we see a sharp global rise for lung cancer screening initiatives without any performance control, with risk substantial harms from opportunistic screening. And we see cohort controlled and program controlled to regular health checks. So an enormous diversity of initiatives. The integration of all disciplines is, of course, also extremely important to get it in one meeting. What you see at the moment, you have radiologists coming together, epidemiologists coming together, surgeons, but there is no interdisciplinary conference at the moment to tackle this major issue. And I think, therefore, this is the right moment to do this. Then, no, wait. Then I think this would be the optimal setting to define minimal requirements that we could have for the three phases of lung cancer screening. So one is the recruitment. So we will address that today, and how you select the right participants. What you see in opportunistic screening is that the lung cancer frequency is going down to a level that you cause more harm than you have benefits. So that's really an important concern of the Cochrane group. Then furthermore, we know that we have to tailor also the way we screen to the population. So therefore, the global part of to get the whole concept in the right place, we should have a global conference to meet this problem. And then what is coming up, especially also in the United States, is that you get more information from this one screen. So the information you get is quite a lot, and is getting more and more with the advance of imaging in the chest. And there are two smoking related morbidities like cardiovascular and emphysema, which should also be addressed in this one test. And then the research that is required here, according to the Cochrane Group, is this participant selection, which is still not there and also population dependent. The optimal frequency that we will also address a little bit later, which should have a major impact also on the cost effectiveness, and the potential significant overdiagnosis, which is a major concern for everyone not involved in screening. They stress overdiagnosis as an important point. So now there is a definite need to provide a professional network to guide the early phase of lung cancer screening implementation to the next phase, controlling harms, optimizing benefits, and keeping it cost effective. And this is it, just for an introduction why we do it now. Okay.
Next, I want to introduce Luis Seijo, who's been wonderful for helping organize this beautiful venue and all of the things that we're going to see in Madrid and at this conference. So thank you very much for all that work.
Thank you, Claudia. I'm good. I have no slides. The reason we're hosting this meeting today is that a year ago, I was asked to coordinate the Year of Lung Cancer Early Detection for the Spanish Thoracic Society. And this was a major achievement because, as you probably know, in Spain, our national cancer strategy not only does not contemplate lung cancer screening, but actually discourages it. So our cancer strategy as of 2021 is basically opposed to the idea of screening for any other cancers that are not colorectal cancer, breast cancer, and cervical cancer. But the Spanish Thoracic Society has been very involved in trying to change this and make lung cancer screening a reality in Spain. And we've been working with I-ELCAP for many years at the Clínica de Navarra. I remember we hosted a meeting with Javier Zulueta, who I have to remember here today. He is not able to make it because he had a prior commitment in Argentina, but he was the pioneer in Spain, joining Claudia many years ago in promoting lung cancer screening in Spain. And we hosted this meeting, and back then I was at a public hospital in Madrid trying to set up a lung cancer screening program. And I quoted Steve Jobs' speech at the Stanford commencement regarding what it takes to set up lung cancer screening in Spain. And I mentioned that he encouraged the students there to stay hungry and stay foolish. And this was close to 10 years ago. And so we stayed hungry and we stayed foolish, and we continued to work on lung cancer screening. And I'm proud to say that as of November of last year, the Spanish national pilot, Cassandra, started recruiting individuals at a Madrid hospital, and it has since included 10 hospitals all over Spain and continues to recruit patients. And we're very hopeful that that initiative, which is really very similar to I-ELCAP in the sense that it goes beyond lung cancer screening into smoking cessation and respiratory assessment of other important comorbidities that are related to lung cancer and that are important in this public health epidemic that we face due to smoking. We've also set up the first Ibero-American Summit of Lung Cancer Screening that was held in Granada, and the second one will be held in Santiago de Chile. Very promising initiative linking Spain, Portugal, and Latin American countries in lung cancer screening initiatives. We have an ongoing master's program that we're developing for lung cancer screening here in Spain, and also accreditation of lung cancer screening programs. So it's a very exciting year of lung cancer early detection that is sponsored and by the Spanish Thoracic Society. And in that context, we're having this meeting here today. I welcome you in Madrid. I hope your stay is a pleasant one. I hope your travels are safe and that you get to enjoy the meeting. And Madrid, it's beautiful weather that we're having and a beautiful city to explore as well. Without further ado, I'd like to give the microphone to Claudia and I guess Matthias. So Claudia, back to you. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll give the I-ELCAP and the I-ELCART updates. And what I want to emphasize that screening takes persistence, perseverance, and a team. And somebody, when I said that, said it takes a good team. And that's what we have. And all of you are included, and we really, it makes a big difference. So I just wanted to give you a shot of David and I when we started this. We looked a little different, but and the CT scanners, remember, were 30 images on a single film, or 12 images on a single tiny film. Now we have monitors, so we can see much more detail. We started thinking, because at that time in the 1990s, screening was dead. Screening for lung cancer, they thought there's no way to find lung cancer where you can make it more curable after the chest X-ray arms. And so we tried very hard, how can we study this in a very cost-effective way? We said we separate the diagnostic mission from the intervention mission. We screened everybody with a CT and a chest X-ray, 1,000 people, and we found what the lung cancer distribution is by size and stage. So that stage shift is now being understood, that that's an important component. And then the treatment follows, and obviously any technique that really finds something earlier changes the whole system all the way to the treatments. So we said, how do we reduce deaths from lung cancer? Nobody really knew. We were finding these small nodules on CT. Nobody knew how to work them up and what to do. We got funding initially, $50,000 from GE, from the CEO himself, and $50,000 from Kodak. And with that, the hospital allowed us to start, although the IRBs gave us a lot of difficulties. It took quite a few times to convince them that this was a good project. And we got a NIH grant as well. So we wanted to explore methods. How do we work up these small nodules? And we started looking at neural networks at that time. Now AI is a big topic, but there was a lot of work in computing and in statistical techniques to get it to where it was. So we kind of stopped in 1994, but we now have an update on our AIRS project, which will be in the keynote lecture. So that's progressing, but it takes, all these things take a long time. And we programmed the management system, which now is an open source management system that's made available to the VA and to the world by Rick Avila, who will be talking as well. So that's the I-ELCAP AIRS program, Automated Image Reading System. This will allow us to, when we have a baseline scan, when we have a repeat scan, we say, does a radiologist really need to look at it? So it would say, only concentrate on those, the radiologist should only concentrate on those that have some change. Now, this is a complex project to get through the FDA. We completed our first initial submission. It's going to be an open source all the way. So we welcome collaborators in all of this process, but you'll hear more about this later. We also looked at volumetrics. David developed a grant and we got a grant. We worked on that very hard. But, you know, with all of these things, Tony Reeves made these beautiful images for us and it was very useful. But what we didn't realize is there's a lot of complexity in volumetric assessment or in any assessment on a CT scanner. And we showed and we reported that within seconds on a scan being repeated without moving the patient, that you could see a 44% change. That's a very rapid malignant doubling rate within seconds. So you know that can't be true. But there's a lot to how you really assess any kind of imaging. And so Phantom was built for this, and you'll hear more about that. So the accuracy and knowing how accurate your images are is a very key component of screening. And it's something that hasn't really been widely recognized. So we finally produced, it was very slow to accumulate the 1,000 patients. We finally produced the result that showed that CT found 27 cancers, of which 85% were in stage 1, while chest X-ray only found 7 cancers, of which 57 were in stage 1. Now, I want to make sure that you understand that doesn't mean chest X-ray doesn't do anything, because there are countries where chest X-ray can be very useful, particularly with the new AI techniques, and that 57% is still better than what you find in usual care. So it's just that CT clearly is much better than chest X-ray. And as one of our members, Dr. Molshine, who's in the audience, said at that time, it's the greatest single reduction of cancer mortality in the history of the war on cancer. And that allowed us to really expand. We immediately expanded to New York LCAP with 12 institutions in New York City and state. And then really to the world, we produced a protocol, and that's been updated regularly. And that allowed us to produce our survival rates that we reported in the New England Journal in 2006, that it was 80% for all cases, interim diagnosed, whatever, and that if you found it in clinical stage 1, it was 92%. There was a lot of controversies, a lot of articles about biases and so on. So with time, we eventually repeated it. But in the meantime, we looked at multiple things from our data that we were collecting through the international collaboration on definitions of nodules, the different types of nodules, the measurement of nodules, growth assessment, thresholds for invasive and non-invasive workup, and the management system for the entire project. So we now really want to take advantage of that, and I think we're at the threshold of doing that. The heart, after all, more deaths are caused due to heart disease than for lung cancer. And actually, COPD is the second leading cause of death. We see all of the early findings on the CT scan, and we're learning how to utilize them better and better. But we see the adrenal glands, we see the liver, we see the breast, we see some breast cancers we see better than mammograms. The thymus, the thyroid, osteoporosis. There's a really a lot of work that we could do in early detection of those diseases. And the key thing is last year, we showed the long-term follow-up, the 20-year follow-up, which was still 81% for the cure rate. That's the Kaplan-Meier 20-year survival curve, but it's essentially the cure rate of cancers diagnosed under CT screening with a good protocol and with good imaging techniques. And if you resected it in the earliest stage, it's 95%. And this time, there weren't really all those discussions. There was, I think, marked acceptance of that potential cure rate. So today, we screen people that in I-ELCAP that are 40 and older, that have either smoked or never smoked. We have quite a large number of people who are never smokers. So we go beyond the current guidelines, so we get informed consent on all of our people. We have long-term follow-up. Patients keep coming to us for more than 20 years, and they then have second primaries, third primaries, even fourth primaries. So how to treat those, how to find them early, that's really a very important topic that needs to be explored. And as I said, we provided Screening Plus, which is the updated management system, which includes AI assistant for filling out the entire form, because filling out that form is tedious, and whatever help we can get is welcome. So we have over 300 publications from the I-ELCAP team, and there were 30 publications in the last year. So it's a lot of work. We also looked at the I-ELCAP, which is the Initiative for Early Lung Cancer Research on Treatment. And we have several publications on what the impact of the diagnostic delay is when you know, how much does that change your prognosis by waiting 3 months, 6 months, a year? And David and Rowena have done a spectacular job at really looking at a lot of databases and looking at that information. And so we'll hear more on that. We received funding from Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation. They funded, had long-term funding for multinational cancer control programs in Africa. The countries are listed here, and they decided that Ethiopia would be the first place to start screening. So we have a grant to really implement screening in Ethiopia. We welcome the researchers from Ethiopia, and we're looking forward to this. Now, Africa, as Cheryl Hilton, who's our public health guru, said, Africa really has the lowest smoking rate in the world of a continent. And so maybe the real emphasis should be to stop, to not even start smoking, but we still need to treat people who have been smoking for a while. And so a screening program might help in both directions. So we now have 94,173 participants in I-ELCAP in more than 80 institutions with more than 100 collaborators, and we hope to keep growing. We have Ghana also starting with us, and Croatia. So we welcome Croatia. It's the first national screening program in the European Union. It was started by Miroslav Samoja. We welcome him. And in Egypt, Olga Horshit and Dr. Mikhail. In Ethiopia, as funded by the Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, Wando Bekele, and I'm sorry about my pronunciations, and from Ghana, we have Dr. Alfred Yasson and Dr. Jane Afiri Mensah. So we welcome the new members. We had an exciting meeting in Croatia just a couple of weeks ago, where they showed what the results of their early detection and trying to figure out how best to proceed to the next round. So let me introduce I-ELCAP. As I said, the Initiative for Early Lung Cancer Research on Treatment. We started in 2016 and have looked at lobectomy versus sublobar resection. We had publications that really predated and were the same as the long-term randomized trial that Dr. Nasser Al-Turki and also in Japan that they reported. We looked at surgery versus radiation therapy, and really also what's important is staging and how much mediastinal lymph node resection do you need in a non-solid nodule that's diagnosed as a cancer. Those are all unanswered questions. So we published surgery versus SBRT for nodules for cancers less than 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters. And we showed that when you look at lung cancer survival, they're essentially the same, whether you do surgery or radiotherapy. And the all-cause mortality is, of course, different because most people with comorbidities are randomized to, given the radiotherapy rather than the surgery. And so the all-cause mortalities are different, but when you do analysis balancing the covariates of age and other comorbidities, they're also the same. So SBRT has a good role for early small lung cancers. And so this was a slide that Rowena made for me, because I said, well, for early diagnosis and treatment, and I get choked up. So, excuse me. So, I say the sun is rising on early diagnosis and early treatment. And like the ocean, the possibilities are limitless. So, excuse my emotional, but this is a very important topic. And I want to thank all the I-ELCAP investigators and their team, and also the screening participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for this very, very impressive lifetime job that you presented to us, and that you're still enduring and going on with this is really something that not many people can tell that they did in their lives. So I think it's very inspirational. And yeah, what it tells us also is that you can do this in the US, but you cannot do that in Europe. This, this, yeah, private initiative just from one center. So and in China, everything works differently. So the real private enterprise that there is still in the United States offers you these opportunities. That's also what it proves, I think. Okay, again, yeah. No. So we agree at the end. So that's great. I will present some things for the future. So that was a real overview over everything that happened over the last, I think, 20, 30 years even. And now we would like to have a look in the coming 10 years. So we are working at this institute, which is in Groningen, and is privatized. What I was my university institute at Groningen, the Center of Medical Imaging. And this IDNA focuses on the imaging of implementation for early detection of lung cancer, cardiovascular disease, and emphysema. So we focus to tobacco-related diseases. And we come into this, at this conference, we will also, we have these incidental findings, and we should have discussions, I think, and that's also important for this conference in the future, that we discuss how we approach all those extra findings and also meet questions when you need to take action on those. Now, we, as an institute, so we are coordinating imaging research in large-scale clinical studies. So I'm quite happy that also the Nelson team from Erasmus is here, whom we are working closely in the Nelson study, in the Robinska study, and now also in the von Lungren study, which I will present here. We work on AI validation and preclinical implementation testing on high-quality imaging data sets of different populations. As you see here, several all in the same region of these 3 diseases. And we do especially, and Claudia mentioned it also, it's extremely important to work on, and there are many people here at the moment that has a lot of knowledge in this respect on the accuracy of imaging. And that is quite big subject, because this changes every outcome what you as a clinician will do in the future. It changes the stratification of the patients. It also changes the actionability of the patient. So this work that has to be done in the field of imaging is more or less key to everything that comes out of lung cancer screening. We have an example in this respect. I think this also stands for breast cancer imaging, where, I think you have the same development, that the central part of the success of breast cancer screening is also the imaging. So we focus our R&D in this respect on the data acquisition, the processing, the post-processing, the decision algorithms, the data integration, the imaging biomarkers, the workload reduction, the process monitoring, and the report coupling of referral and actionability of everything that we get out of the imaging results. Then we have already many data, sets, banks, or whatever you call it, to test the software. So we do not develop the imaging software ourselves, but we validate the software. And we have a close collaboration with, as I said already, with the Erasmus University, Groningen University, and Amsterdam University, which are the main drivers of medical academical work in the Netherlands, as you can see in the top 100 university listing of the Shanghai rating. And then furthermore, we host, and I think that is also an issue here at this meeting and is quite important, in the future. We host our data, everything, the processing, the storage, the security, the connectivity, and the private cloud in a high-performance computer center that is really up to all the standards that are at the moment and are needed, especially also in Europe, which is, there is no hospital more or less in Europe that can meet those standards. So that's also something to discuss, which is extremely important. And we probably have no idea how that is met in other countries. So I just want to focus on one of those studies, which is foreign learning study, which is the most important study that we are doing at the moment and is running at the moment. It's funded by the EU, and you will find this EU funding on the slides because the review committee wanted us to give more exposure to the European funding. So we do it now, so you know it's European funded. It's 5 European countries with the UK. Yeah, when we got the permission, the UK was still in. And as you can see, after the Brexit, here they are out, but there are special financial measures from England that they can still work together with us in those grants. It's met for 24,000 individuals. The inclusion criteria are specially tailored to answer extra questions. So how cost effective will it be if you start with an age of 60? I'm aware of the fact that in Mount Sinai, they do it from 40. And we have we want to answer several questions here on how to profile the population to a high risk population to make it cost effective in a way that also the policymakers will fund it. Now, the foreign learner study, as I said, is focusing on the safety of risk bias, less intensive screening intervals to the hard to reach individuals, and also on the comorbidities like calcium scoring and COPD. It's in fact what you see is, of course, on a CT, not COPD, because there is a functional test involved if you have the word obstructive in, but we are more or less focusing on emphysema as part of the whole COPD syndrome. Then this is the current status of the study. And this also shows you the real-time monitoring that we can do. This is per 1 May. And I think those kind of monitoring is essential to have a feeling how you are doing. So we have at the 1st of May, 13,000 participant scans, and we had a referral rate of 3.4, which is, and we know from the very preliminary results that our lung cancer detection rate is a little bit higher than in the Nelson. So that would add up to almost twice as high lung cancer detection rate as we had in the Nelson. We see here also the 3A, that is the yellow bar, which are the indeterminates. And that percentage is around 16%, which is also better than in the Nelson. And then, as I said, we have here the referrals. Up to now, we have 364, I think, something like that. Cannot read it. So the CT data, details here from 7 imaging centers. We scan, and that's also important. We integrate a complete all the knowledge that we gathered from the Robinska study, which is on the calcium scoring screening. And we will hope to come out with the data by this year in terms of morbidity and mortality and the stratification compared to this to different scorings that are used by the cardiologist. And we integrated knowledge and developed a one-run approach that we have 2 analyses, which is really at a very high accuracy, which can be used also to translate the outcomes of the Robinska study to the foreign learner study. So we do thin slice protocols, low dose, which is also, and I will show you that the dose monitoring is extremely important, and we have a high temporal resolution. Now, the reconstructions, we will come in this Congress, I think, quite a lot more. Then you see that we can do up to nine, perhaps more participants in an hour. So that's quite a lot. And then with no contrast and with no ECG. So that is, I think, the major point here, and no beta blockers, of course. So also for the cardiac testing, we just do this in this one run that we also use for the lung cancer screening. And when you do calcium scoring in a referral, they will use ECG triggering and beta blockers. So furthermore, the protocols that we use in the imaging is, I think, very familiar for those that are working in radiology. So this is a per participant registration that you see here. So that is on the calcium score, the emphysema score, and which is extremely important. We also will provide the dose per participant. And we have now the analysis over 5,000 participants in the dose, and we have a mean dose of 0.9 millisievert in the population for both scans. So for both reconstructions. So for both outcomes, as well as calcium score, as well lung cancer screening. Now, furthermore, we have also in the program a separate session on the protocols. So that is very nice. We try to simplify protocols as much as we can. We see many protocols that are that complicated that no one can really report on this without having the protocol at the hand and have a look where what should come out. We try to work to a protocol that could also work in the routine of a radiologist without looking up what the outcome should be all the time. So we separated the negative, indeterminate, and positive as much as we can, with, of course, subcategories depending also on the stage that the nodule is in. And we are working on AI lung screening software solutions. So we do comparisons at baseline. We are also working on getting it as a first reader, the AI. We think the future is there. And for this, you need an extremely high negative predictive value. We will come into this also in this meeting. And we are also looking to what it can do for all the other comorbidities. And now we are that far that the calcium score can be indeed completely replaced by AI in a study. So that will also be, I will shortly see it, show it here. So we focus on annual follow-up intervals for non-solid lung nodules, and probably that can be done also after 2 years. That's something we would like to answer with the frontal lung study. We are heavily focusing now on VDT measurements. We will show quite a lot of results here. We work on the decision algorithms. We try to lower the thresholds for positive results based on VDT. So we introduced again the 400 to 600 days as indeterminate results. But that is important that you have a very reliable VDT, and as I think nicely shown, that is not that easy. So you need to make to more or less study also the different segmentation algorithms. So the VDT will probably not work for nodules smaller than 100 cubic millimeter, and that is something we should address also. We think we should do the same as we do in Mount Sinai. As a radiological community, we should also come to an advice on the actionability of the classification. So not giving just for a nodules or nodules at risk, but also giving advice on the actionability, which is the next step. So here we have such an example of forendolumran. It's a nodule that was positive at first read, and it's classified for A. The PET-CT showed was also positive with lymphadenopathy at the right hilum. And we did, now you can see here very nicely the nodule. And here we did transbronchial lung nodule biopsy, as you can see here. And it appeared to be an adenocarcinoma. And I think this is a very elegant way to get the final histological proof that you want to have for such a nodule. So here, the interventional radiologist, pulmonologist, in our view, will have a big future in the work of those nodules that can be approached endobronchial. So I think this is very nice work. Now, furthermore, we work on this workload reduction on several data sets that we have. So here we tested in 2 different data sets. And because we focus on the negatives, ruling out, so not ruling in. So we use the AI not for ruling in nodules, but for ruling out nodules. And that is, of course, very applicable in screening because you have a very low lung cancer rate in the data sets, only of 1% or 2%. So we have many, many, many negatives. So if the AI can rule out in a very reliable fashion the negative scans, then you can get an enormous workload reduction. So we proved in this test data sets that it could be when you have around a 50% and negative, so no nodules, and a 30% nodule smaller than 100 cubic millimeter, it can up to a workload reduction of 86%. And we proved it in the UCLS data set, which is a known lung cancer screening, real life study, that it can go up to 65% because they have there a lot less negatives as in the Moscow data set. And now, as you see here from the UCLS data set, in the negative predictive value, so in the ruling out, the AI is going to be better than a radiologist in the future. That is a thing that is really part of the studies that we are doing in frontal lung. And the first preliminary data show that they outperform completely the radiologist for ruling out. The main problem of the AI is, of course, this enormous rate of false positives. And that is something we will also address in this meeting. Then the reproducibility of the calcium score. So that is also important. So we have in the indeterminates, we have a baseline scan and we have a 3-month follow-up scan. And we tested the outcome of in almost 500 participants and had a look. And remember the VDT, I think that was in 4 seconds, or you did a repeat scan on the same nodule the same day or something with a 40% difference in the VDT. Now, this is a kind of same setup, but even 3 months in between, 3 months in between calcium scoring. Now, the hypothesis is that there is no change. So the calcium score should be almost the same in the 3 months. And what we found is indeed that we get a mean which is almost the same in the 3 months with no ECD triggering and with no beta blockers or any interference to manage the heart rhythm. And we came out with only a downgrade classification of 1.6%, which is, I think, extremely good on one hand, but it also make the combination of lung cancer screening and calcium scoring in an acceptable, with an acceptable dose feasible. And that is, I think, pretty important news. And here you see the stratification. We know already before we are now getting the data from the morbidity and mortality, we know already now that we have around 36% or something that we reclassify, downgrade compared to the classical risk factors. So that would mean that in those patients, you could really downsize the statin therapy to an extremely high percentage, and probably from that therapy cost reduction, you can pay the lung cancer screening. That would be very nice. Now, Then last but not least, the research on the emphysema. And there we run into an extreme problem of noise if you really want to come to high accuracy. And you can see the thresholds at the bottom line of the low attenuation areas in percentages is minus 950, and that is the threshold all over in the world, to minus 975. And what we see in the inter-reader agreement in large data sets, that the lower you go, so if you go to minus 1000, then you have the best reader agreement. The higher you go, so at minus 950, you have the poorest reader agreement. But why can you, from those data, you would say, okay, we should go to then to minus 1000. But the point there is that it comes to the cost of, so noise reduction comes at the cost of lowering down the early detection of emphysema, as you can see here very nicely. So the green parts here are very small nodules from 3 to 6 millimeter, and they disappear, as you can see here. When you go to the right, you can see that they disappear. The blue ones are from 6 to 12 millimeters, and the orange ones are from 12 to 6 millimeters. And as you see here in the left upper corner, I asked many pulmonologists, and yeah, Dr. Seijo is here, and he was the only one with the right answer in the last years. No one had any clue how large an acinus was. And so the lower limit is about 100 cubic millimeters, and that is very interesting because that is also our threshold for the change in distribution between malignant and benign growth. And that comes because probably the benign growth will not surpass the anatomical structures, and malignant growth will. And that is why the distribution above this threshold will change. And when you ask the radiologist or anyone, how many alveoli are there in an acinus, no one knows. So that goes up to 30,000. So there will be no imaging technology that can ever image alveoli level. So that's also something we should realize. So we come to the acinar level, but not to the alveolar level. Now, the hypothesis here is that we are really for early detection of emphysema, we are really here on the corner, on the edge, what we can do, because we have to manage here between random, what I called random voxel noise clustering, which disappears if you go lower by threshold, but at the same time, you will also suppress the small development of emphysema. So we think that the optimal way to do this and the optimal way to quantify this is somewhere between minus 950 and minus 965. It's that subtle. It's that subtle. So this is then, as I said, the preliminary conclusions of Von Lungren. It is what we can do. We can indeed monitor all the different functions and parameters that we would like to monitor during the process of the screening itself in a clinical setting. If you are only working in one hospital, or you do a large study in a province or in a region or in a country, it's possible to monitor this. And for us, of course, we benchmarked everything with the Nelson. And for us, it's extremely important that the preliminary results of Von Lungren indicate that we outperform Nelson. So we like to outperform our own study. Then we can do a reliable integration on early detection of cardiovascular disease, and that it is feasible, and that we can combine it, and that we can do it to an extremely low dose. And I think that is all very important. We think that AI will play a very important role in lung cancer screening implementation. And we are proving at the moment at our institute that probably the place will be on workload reduction and not on an aid for the positive nodules. So we think that the positive nodules is really the work of the radiologist. And then we think that we will add up as we can just with a single baseline CT, we have a referral rate up to 3.5%, which is also higher than in the Nelson. So you can expect the coming year and that we will finalize the Robinska study and outcome, and also the calcium score impact, and also the inclusion of foreign learning. We will come up to the number that we presented in the beginning by the end of this year. Then we will finalize the AI performance in the UPLS dataset, which is also extremely interesting to see when you have the histology outcome, what is the absolute performance of AI in such a dataset. And now, yeah, you see, we will do a lot of work on the VDT and the AI development for lung cancer screening and cardiovascular disease. Thank you for your attention.
So just a few comments. First, I want to thank the sponsors. I was going to, by the way, start this session by saying that it's very important for everybody to stay on time. So we've already missed our mark.
We started 10 minutes late.
There you go. So, okay. So first I want to thank our sponsors because this was a new conference and we're very fortunate that people had a lot of faith in us and decided to support this meeting. In particular, I do want to thank our friends from GE, Siemens, and AstraZeneca, who were the lead sponsors for this, but we really had wonderful sponsorship from all of these other organizations. Some of them are going to be displaying posters in the back and at tables. So take a look, please, at what some of these organizations have brought. We greatly appreciate them. We also had endorsements from these organizations, and including the IASLC, which was, and the SHAPE Foundation, the Cardiac Foundation, is particularly showing some interest in this. And finally, these other organizations also are supporting this meeting. So we greatly appreciate this. Now, I wanted to go back to some of the things Claudia had said. This whole meeting kind of started back from the award that we gave. The Prevent Cancer Foundation gave the prestigious James L. Mulshine Award this year to Matthias, and I had the pleasure of presenting that award to him. And by the way, there are also two other people in this room who received this award. Claudia received it a few years ago, and Cheryl Hilton, who's here, is also a recipient of this award. Matthias, we congratulated for all the work he's done, but also for the army of students and fellows that he has produced over the years that continue to do some wonderful work. And I already see that some of them are attending this meeting, and I'm sure will continue to do great work. So that was really wonderful. But it was at this meeting that Matthias kind of came to the idea of maybe it would be good for us to work together. And he said, you know, you and I-ELCAP, he described us, he said, you're like a pirate organization. So Claudia immediately said, pirate? What does that mean? You know, we don't steal things. And so he explained it. And he explained that pirates fly under their own flag. You guys don't have to answer to anybody. You don't answer to your government. You don't answer to these big, you fund yourself, you make your own decisions, and you really, in a sense, have been this independent organization that does everything on their own. So we like that. We really like that idea. This slide, by the way, was generated by Rowena. And Rowena also is responsible for the logo. That was AI generated. I wasn't sure if this was AI generated or not. It was AI generated. There's going to be a lot of AI generated at this meeting. So this was our pirate. Now, the planning committee, you heard a few things, and it really was a pleasure to work with this. You know, I-ELCAP has made their own meetings we've done 45 meetings already, or 44 meetings up until this point, and we had our own little planning group, and we could put together programs pretty quickly. Here, we had to work with others, and we weren't sure how well it would work with Matthias and John Field and Mario, but it worked very well. And in particular, I have to say that John and Jim started the IASLC screening conference. So they had a lot of experience already in putting together these kind of conferences. So it was very good working, and it was really a pleasure going back and forth, kind of, getting different perspectives. But the idea was to make this a global meeting, really include Europeans, North America, South America, all the continents, Asia. And we plan on expanding this committee at some point to include Asian colleagues as well. Does anybody see this movie? Jiro Dreams of Sushi. A wonderful movie. Came out, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And Jiro owns a restaurant in Tokyo. It's a 3-star Michelin restaurant. And the movie is all about the subtleties of preparing sushi. It's an hour and a half, 2-hour movie. And what goes into, the picking the fish, the slicing the fish, how many years it would take. He would have to train people just to steam the rice. He would sometimes take people years just to learn how to do that. And so you start to understand just how deep people can get into these various things. So when I saw this movie, I had one thought in my mind. Now, another very subtle thing, and this is something that you'll appreciate. You'll notice this is a film by David Yankelevitz. So if you want to understand why we appreciate Rowena, this is Rowena generated. She picks up all of the fine details here. So, and this is true. This is really, but I also realized that it's not just limited to this. There's a whole group of folks. Now, this was our planning committee. All of this group really thinks of it. And in fact, if I look around this audience, I can assure you that there are many people here that dream about lung nodules and how they grow. So it's really wonderful to have a room filled with these kind of folks that are doing this. The sessions we'll get to, but it's mainly, first day is mainly on implementation. And you'll see we have global challenges, enrollment. We'll have some updates on technology, the Simons lectures, and then we'll have a diagnostic case review panel with audience participation as well. We're going to allow, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we have the African initiative. All of these, or most of this, is panel discussions. And for the panels, we're going to have 2 moderators. One moderator will stand here. The second moderator will be over there, have a computer that can potentially be looking at questions that are coming in, and we'll explain how people can submit questions online. We'll have external questions. We have several hundred people on Zoom that are watching. Day 2, did it change? Day 2 is mainly on lung nodules, and this is all panel discussions. Same idea. And day 3 is mainly therapeutics and then a vision towards the future. So these are the sessions that we'll be having. Faculty dinner is tonight at 8 o'clock. There'll be a bus picking up both here and at the hotel. I am not sure yet what time the bus is leaving. We'll confirm that in a little while. And the front desk will have all of that information for you. I do have a sad note. Many of you who came to the I-ELCAP meetings remember Dr. Smith. He was really a founding member of I-ELCAP and was really a senior pulmonologist. He was very well known in New York City. He was just a wonderful guy, a great clinician, and he really was the one who kind of backed us at a time when screening was really considered controversial, and helped us get through the first IRB. He passed away recently, and he used to give his talks about the New York Yankees at every I-ELCAP meeting. At the next I-ELCAP meeting, we're going to do a much more detailed tribute to him. I do want to talk about something. This is a slide from a paper written actually by Dr. Yang, who's here, and he talked about stage shifts, and everybody's sort of familiar with what you dream of. You want the stage 4s to go down, and you want the stage 1s to go up, and this is stage shift. But I was at a meeting recently, and I was talking about the Agile meeting, and this was somebody who ran a foundation in New York City, and she said to me, you know, there's been another stage shift in lung cancer screening, and that's the screening, that's the shift that we see of the participants, the people that are doing it. The controversy is gone. The idea that everybody's working together, can you imagine a few years ago that we'd have groups like the Nelson and I-ELCAP working together, having the American Cancer Society, the ACR here, European groups that are working. The lung cancer screening really was a difficult screening. I probably should ask Robert if he saw the same in other areas of screening, but lung cancer was pretty controversial, and the factions inside and the infighting, et cetera, it was really not that we contributed to that, but it was quite remarkable, and that's really gone. And the idea that everybody's moving in the same direction, I think really is a stage shift, if I can use that term. And I think a lot of really wonderful things are going to start happening at a much more accelerated rate. This is a book that was just released. It's called Early Detection, Catching Cancer when it's curable. And this is written by Bruce Ratner. He is not a physician. Bruce is on the board at Memorial Sloan Kettering, Cold Spring Harbor, Cornell. He is a philanthropist. He's a major real estate developer in New York City. He actually built the Barclays Center. He built the New York Times building, and he just had his opening book signing at the New York Times building. He has a large section on lung cancer screening, and he is setting up a new initiative to start pushing early detection. He feels that this has been totally underutilized. There's not been enough focus on early detection, especially in funding organizations, that this is where the action really needs to be. And he was going to try to make it, but he's just overwhelmed with his book right now. But he gave us 80 copies. They're in the front desk, and they're free. Anybody can pick them up. I think it's a good read, and so we're really pleased that he was donating this. Talking about AI and the power of AI, I decided to ask AI to write a poem about Agile. Because Agile DXRX, diagnosis and treatment. And here's the poem. Amidst the bustling world, a new dawn breaks, a conference that Agile's name undertakes, gathering minds united in their quest to confront the challenges that lung and heart test. Early diagnosis, the guiding light, vigilant eyes scanning for the signs, uncovering the truth before it entwines. Rapid response, a race against time, empowering patients, a future sublime. Innovative treatments, the path ahead. Lung and heart, the focus of our care. Innovative approaches, a future to share. Groundbreaking therapies, tailored and true. Empowering the body, a new lease on life anew. A future brighter, a hope renewed. Agile, a beacon in the medical sphere, guiding us forward with vision so clear. Inspiring change, a future so bright. Lung and heart, now in a stronger light. Let us embrace this conference with hearts so bold. A journey of discovery, a story unfold. Agile, the catalyst for a healthier tomorrow, where earlier diagnosis and treatment conquer sorrow. Pretty good. This was 5 seconds to make this poem. Pretty impressive, I thought. Although not as impressive as that logo. And I just have a few sort of housekeeping things. We're only allowed to bring water into this room, no coffee, no food. If you have questions about the Wi-Fi, David is here and he'll be able to answer that. The next Agile meeting, we are planning a second meeting, and that's already scheduled for April 3rd, 4th, and 5th in 2025, and we're going to wait till the end of the meeting to announce the location. The next LCAP meeting will be in New York City on September 19th, 20, and 21. I hope you put that in your calendars. There is a faculty dinner tonight. I said that's at 8 p.m. Friday night is kind of a free night for everyone. There is a listing of places that's at the front desk of wonderful restaurants that's available, and maybe some places to see that you can look. There is a small event that was, there were a limited number of seats. I think you got emails. It was sort of a small number, so it was sort of a first come, first serve. So some of you will probably be coming to that, but there's a lot of wonderful other things to do as well. Coffee breaks are downstairs. Lunch is downstairs. And moderators for the sessions, one moderator, we're planning on being up here. There's going to be a computer set up over there to take questions. Let's see, the panelists, I think, can introduce themselves. Will be a nice way to do things. And for David is going to explain how to log in if there's any questions. And also you're going to explain the questions and audience participation and how that's going to work. And with that, David, you can take over.
All right, thank you, Dr. Y, for the introduction. So my name is David. I'm part of the I-ELCAP IT team. Another member of our team, Sabrina, is also with us. One of us will always generally be in the back corner over there. So if you have any questions regarding tech, you could generally find one of us back there. So you guys are probably trying to connect to the Wi-Fi here. So if you guys want to just want to take a picture, or it's a bit of a process. You have to log into like this UNAV guest thing, and then again, if you have any more questions regarding the Wi-Fi in particular, you can always find me. So I'll try to move on quickly from here, so we're a bit short on time. So one of the things that we're using for many of our presentations is we're adding sort of an audience polling system. I think Dr. Y mentioned this. For the presentations that are using the polling system, we're using a system called Mentimeter. So one thing you guys could try right now, you could get on your phones, you scan the QR code here, you get on or you get on menti.com. I don't know if the text is big enough for that, but I'm actually going to do that myself. You guys can kind of follow through this and see how it works. Okay, so moving on. So if you haven't given us your slides yet, either to me or Sabrina, you can just email them to us. So again, these are our email addresses. Again, you could also, if you have them on a USB or something, you could also just give it to me over in the corner back there. You could find me. But again, if you haven't given us your slides yet, please try to get them to us earlier if possible. This way we could try to avoid any sort of possible technical hiccups. So moving on, by the way, if you've scanned into the Mentimeter thing on your phones, you'll probably notice that you'll see this slide on your phone. So basically how the Mentimeter platform works is once you join the presentation on the initial slide, like say back here, it will go through each slide on whatever you could view it on your laptop. For those of us that are joining on Zoom from overseas, you'll see the same thing. You could follow through the entire presentation depending on which slide I'm on. So let's just start off with a quick polling question. So you guys can probably, if you guys have joined in, you should probably be able to see this question on your phone. So it's a very simple question. I'm guessing most of us flew in. For those of us that didn't, I mean, I'm guessing a lot of people are probably on Zoom, or maybe they're already in Spain. So we could just, I'm just going to answer this myself too. So yeah, you get basically, this is basically how the polling platform works for the presentations that are going to be having this. We'll be able to see the responses basically update in real time. depending on what the audience is polling, and they're all anonymous, so feel free to answer whatever it is you want to. And so when I move on between slides, so I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So I'm guessing if everybody's already polled or answered the question here, we'll be able to move on to the next slide. So one of the things that some of our presentations will have is an option to sort of see, like sort of see how people answered one question and how they sort of respond to the next question. Okay, well, there's a lot of people that had, well, more than 2 coffees. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we could sort of see how this sort of correlates. Yeah, a lot of plates. Okay, that makes sense. So this is something that we'll see in some of the presentations, not all of them. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right. And regarding I think Dr. Weil was mentioning the Q&A as well. I don't have a slide for that, but basically I think people that are live here, if you have questions, then you can just feel free to, try to raise the questions here. For people on Zoom, there is a Q&A. There's a question, like a Q&A button on the Zoom platform that you could type in a question, and then the moderators will be able to see it and then filter it out. And then try to, well, I mean, we probably won't be able to respond to everything, but we'll try our best to get around to whatever questions we can. And again, regarding slides, just want to emphasize this again. If the earlier the better. So for those of us that haven't given me yours to bring in the slides yet, again, we're going to be in the corner over there. You give it to me on a USB, or you could just email it to us. So that's, and again, regarding any other technical questions, you could also find us too. Any questions or? Oh, the Wi-Fi. Okay, yeah, I'll leave that up. Yep. This thing. This one. Okay. So you scanned it in and it locked. Yeah. So if I go to the very. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can scan back into it. Yeah. You should be able to scan back. So whenever you scan into it, again, there's 2 ways to join in. You could scan the QR code, or there's like a little thing at the top. You could just go to menti.com. There's going to be a unique code for each presentation that's using Mentimeter. So so you could join either way. Does anybody need the Wi-Fi thing again, or? Okay, I'm gonna go back to that screen a bit. We good with this? Okay, I'm gonna move on to the. Okay, yeah. All right. So, yep.